Okay, I think we're recording. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining. This is the Fix Your Focus workshop where I'll be teaching you guys how to get more done in 1 hour than most do in a full day. So I'm going to share my screen. I know Spencer and Nick are joining us from Utah. We got Ryan from Michigan, and there's a few other people that signed up from across the country. So if you are watching the recording, I'd love to hear where you're from and how you found me. But with that in mind, let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, you can see this? Sounds great. I'm more of a simple dude. I don't necessarily love slideshows. I use them sometimes, but we're just going to rock and roll some notes today and make it more of a conversation. And my goal today is this is a workshop. So we're actually going to be doing things very, very minimal, but I'm going to give you guys some really awesome actionable takeaways. So you can put this into action because as you may have heard me say before, or maybe you've heard other people say, education without implementation is just entertainment. And we're here to get results. We're here to create more time and money freedom in our life through the work that we put in. And that's what we're focusing on today. So, reminder, stick around till the end or watch till the end. If you're watching the recording, you'll get 2 free bonuses that I've created specifically for you guys. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right in. So, first, I want to talk about working long hours and a little bit about my story and how I found what I'm going to teach you guys today. So a few years ago, I clock in to my work day, for 8 to 12 hours. I keep myself busy and I tell myself that the longer I was on the clock, the more likely I was to win. I'd stack my calendar and to-do list with as much as possible. I'd overestimate my ability to get things done. And mostly I'd get overwhelmed and I'd waste time. But to most people, or maybe to you, hey, I was working hard, right? I was working all day after all, but that's totally wrong. And the reason why is because a lot of days I would think of how busy the day seemed. So I'd get to the end of my day, I'd clock out, you could say, even though I was self-employed, I still had a schedule. I'd get ready to go home, and somehow I'd feel like I still had done absolutely nothing. I'd accomplished nothing. I'd basically just been busy all day. And over time, what that led to is me being burnt out and super frustrated with my lack of results. I'd say things like, why the hell am I working so hard and showing up each day only to spin my wheels? And it seemed like my to-do list only got longer. I know I can see Ryan on the camera. If that resonates with you, let me know because I know a lot of people like us have been there. So again, the to-do list got longer. My goals just seemed further away. And although on paper I was doing good, I knew deep down I was leaving so much on the table. And if you're anything like me, nothing is more painful than knowing you could be doing more, but holding yourself back. So it would frustrate me every single day more than I could put into words when I'd let myself procrastinate instead of getting the work done. I would distract myself instead of executing, and I would avoid rather than accomplish. What I really wanted, and the reason I'm going to teach you guys this today, I think what we all really want is more freedom and results, that harmony of the two. I didn't really want to work all day. I really like doing other things, but I just wanted to get the results that I believed only came from working those long hours. The traditional advice of work harder and longer wasn't working anymore. At a certain point, I think we all need to try something new, something I believe is not taught or talked about nearly enough. So when I found what I'll be sharing with you in this workshop, it honestly felt like the answer to my prayers. It was what allowed me to work less hours, but get better results. And not only that, but finally being able to focus, knowing that if I set out to do something, I could get it done, not in a week, not in a full work day, but in one sitting. So if that sounds good to you, if you're muted or unmuted, you can just let me know. But it was definitely the answer to my prayers. So I was very, very excited about this. So let's talk first before we jump in. Let's see, we got, yeah, Spenny, love it. Awesome, man. Glad it resonated. So let's talk about who else used this because I'm just some dude, why should you listen to me? And I'd love to help you to understand why this was such an unlock for me. So who else used this? It's what the brightest minds in history of many different paths used. People like Thomas Edison, legendary inventor and thinker, J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter series, Carl Jung, legendary psychologist and industry pioneer, and even Woody Allen, legendary writer, actor, and director that received 23 Academy Award nominations, and more. You can find evidence of this in all elite performers and go-getters in any industry or any particular path because they all had one thing in common. They worked less hours but they got better results. And today, that's the whole point of why we're here. We're going to dive into how they accomplished this. So I first want to talk about the old paradigm, because I think this is something we all struggle with. I still sometimes struggle with. I know better now, and sometimes I still find myself going back to this old paradigm. And that paradigm is this. I used to believe I needed to work long hours to succeed, that somehow the amount of hours I worked would equal the results I generated. Like I would say to myself, man, the more I work, the more I'll win. You know, if I just put in the hours, I just put in the work, then I'm more likely to win and hit my goals. But unfortunately, that just isn't true. Hours worked does not equal results generated. I want you guys to really remember that. Hours worked does not equal results generated. More time was never the problem because I was working a shit ton. More effort is only going to burn you out. I'm speaking from experience. The problem with most advice for people like us, the purpose-driven, ambitious, and results-focused people, is it always champions one train of thought. And that train of thought is more. More, 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 more. More hours, more effort, more strategies, more complexity. Remember this, more isn't better, better is better. It's always a quality over a quantity game, especially when it comes to getting results and creating more time and money freedom in our lives. So the real secret is to stop doing everything and to start doing what only, or excuse me, to only do what actually really matters. So the reason why is because when we do what really matters, everything else works out. If we can get ourselves to do the most important work first, as I think his name's Bill Walsh would say, the score will take care of itself. And when we get the most important work done, we can do what really matters to us, which is enjoy our lives and the freedom we create as we make progress in our careers and towards our mission, whatever that is. Everybody deep down has something they're working towards, the vision. And that's what we want to do. Enjoy our lives and enjoy the freedom we create as we make progress towards that North Star that we've created. I want you to remember this. That old saying, less is more, is true 9 times out of 10. Okay, there are some examples that may not apply. Like, for example, I think we all want to make more money. I don't think you want less money. So that's the 1 out of 10 times it doesn't apply. Everything else, though, it is a quality over quantity game. So I now want to help you to change your mindset from effort-based work to focused-based results. That's a huge shift, okay? Effort-based work is what you did before. We're now moving to focused-based results. Work doesn't matter, results do, okay? And I want to talk to you about how you can get more done in 1 hour than you used to do in 1 day. That's the whole reason you showed up today, and I'm going to deliver on that promise using a few methods that work with your brain and not against it. So first, let's talk about the superpower and skill that you need in 2025. So something I hear a lot from the self-employed and 9-to-5 professionals I've consulted with is this. I simply can't stay focused long enough to finish things. And I get it. Your phone is blowing up all the time. You have constant text messages, all those annoying ass spam calls, or maybe they're real calls coming in. You got notifications from apps constantly popping off. And it's not only that your phone is screaming for your attention. On top of that, you also check it constantly, even when there's nothing to see. But there is one culprit that's worse out of them all: social media. It never ends. There's always new notifications. There's always new content. There's always new people. You can scroll for 12 hours a day and you're going to find new shit. Now, add on top of that your career and business responsibilities, the things that actually get you the freedom for time and money that you want. There are fires to fight and people to keep happy constantly. You need to make money, obviously, and get things done. And then you add on top of that your personal life. There are also fires to fight and people to keep happy. And you need to make memories, aka live your life, and still get shit done. So the moral of the story is this. No matter what you do for a living, no matter what your background is, things constantly come up. Everything in this world is constantly fighting for your most precious resources, your time and your attention. In this day and age, there is one superpower that will put you ahead faster than anything else, and that is your ability to focus. Alex Hormozy has a quote I'll share. A focused fool can accomplish more than a distracted genius. So we're not going to be distracted anymore. I believe all the people in this call are smart, but even if you're not, I don't even consider myself that smart of a person, and this shit works. There is a problem though. When everything is a priority, nothing is. When all things are urgent, nothing is. And when all things need to get done, nothing is going to get done. So today you'll begin building the most important skill and tool you have at your disposal. At the end of this call, you're going to be able to take action on this right away. It's a skill that allows you to make more progress in 1 hour than you used to all day. And it will improve the quality of your work and results by at least double, by at least 2x, I promise. And that skill is deep work. If you've heard of deep work, maybe throw it in the chat or raise your hand. Let me know. We're going to dive into exactly how you can use this skill starting as early as later today. So deep work, if you haven't heard of it, deep work is any focused, in other words, distraction-free time spent on high-impact tasks that directly drive progress in your goals, your business or career, and your personal growth. So compare that to shallow work, which is what you're most used to. It's what you do all day most of the time. Shallow work is any low impact task that keeps you busy. They don't always move the needle. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I know for sure in my life, I spent a lot of time on shallow work, on stuff that like kept me busy. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing stuff. Then I get to the end of the day and I'm like, holy shit, I didn't actually do anything that's going to get me closer to my goal. I kept myself busy by responding to emails and a bunch of dumb shit, but I didn't actually do the one thing that I needed to do to get the results that I was looking for. So this is the type of work, again, I just said that most people do daily. It's multitasking, it's low level tasks and effort. It's short bursts of productivity followed by distraction. So you check an email, you respond to a client, next thing you know, you're on TikTok. And then you go back and you're like, oh, I'll hurry and post on social media. Then you're back on TikTok, right? Cal Newport, he's the author of the book Deep Work. He said, to produce at your peak level, you need to work for extended periods with full concentration on a single task, free from distraction. So our goal in general and today is to increase the amount of deep work that you do while reducing or delegating the shallow work. We want to be all in on what creates the most results. So let's just quickly, just in case it's not clear, let's cover some examples of shallow versus deep work. So shallow work, jumping between tabs or tools, answering emails or messages, posting on social media, filling out paperwork, any meetings you attend. In other words, low effort, busy work. Compare that to deep work, which is what you're going to be doing moving forward. That's prospecting for new business. That could be focused outreach for periods of time, creating content, marketing your business, writing, recording, editing, researching information on a specific problem or bottleneck. So strategic thinking, working through the problems that are stopping you from getting the results that you want. Working on an important project, something that has a deadline needs to get done. Learning new skills or strategy to improve your ability to get results. In other words, deep work is high impact, focused work. So if you notice the difference, shallow work is more reactive. It's like things that come up throughout the day or that are kind of good. They're going to be there either way, right? Whereas deep work is very intentional. That's why it's called deep, right? You're going deep on the things that matter the most. And at the end of the workshop today, I'm going to give you some ways you can start deep working as early as later today. And I'll answer any questions you might have to make sure you're rock solid to start right away. Cal Newport, I already used that quote. Whoops, I've doubled the quote. That's how important it is. Again, to produce at your peak level, you need to work for extended periods of time with full concentration on a single task free from distraction. Now let's talk about why. Task switching, if you've heard of that, let me know in the chat or maybe raise your hand if your camera's on. But yeah, task switching will cost you at minimum 15 minutes of focus. And here's why. Your brain doesn't like to focus on multiple things at once. It will switch its focus from one thing to another. Even if it's very quickly, it does switch. It doesn't actually focus on two things at once. The problem with that is something called attention residue takes place. You're not really fully focused on what is in front of you because a piece of your attention is still on the other thing. That's why it's so destructive if while you're working on something important, you just I'll just quickly respond to that text, or I'll just look at that email. A little scroll won't hurt. It really does. In other words, you can't multitask your way to excellence. You need to learn how to do deep work. But that leads us to the real challenge. And you've probably felt this before. You sit down to work and you want to focus. You're even ready to do something meaningful, but you don't know what to work on. Everything seems like it could be something worth working on, but you don't actually know what is the most important thing I could be doing right now. And that's where most people like us get stuck. They either focus on the wrong things or they get overwhelmed by anything, everything and everything, or anything and everything, and then they distract themselves. So in the next section, I'm going to show you how to solve that in under 10 seconds by asking yourself one question that will change how you approach your day forever. So now we're going to talk about how you can do prioritization in under 10 seconds. The only thing being worse, or excuse me, the only thing worse than being unfocused is being laser focused on the wrong things. Another thing that I hear people like us say a lot is, I don't know what to focus on. Again, when everything is a priority, nothing is. If everything matters, nothing matters. When you have 101 things to do, how do you know which is most important to focus on? Because deep work, even though it sounds cool, is useless if you're using it to waste time on unimportant work. You don't need to do more. You need to get ruthless about doing the right thing. In order to deep work effectively, you'll need to know how to prioritize. Thanks, Spence. Yeah, you'll get the recording. I know you said you had to jump, but yeah, I'll send you the recording and email. Thanks for being here, brother. So again, you need to get ruthless about doing the right thing. In order to deep work effectively, you'll need to know how to prioritize. Otherwise, you'll be sinking your best output into your worst input. You don't need more time. You need more clarity. And most people, they don't get the results that they want because they don't know what actually matters. So let's say, just for the sake of an example, today you're looking at your to-do list, or you're just thinking of all of the responsibilities that you need to take care of in order to get results in your life. It's pretty clear that not everything matters equally. To-do lists are full of distractions. Most people major in minor things, as I've heard it said. Ideally, what we want to do as effective high performers is we want to do things in an order that acts like dominoes. Are you familiar with dominoes? I'm sure you've seen those as a kid. You played with them, or you at least know what I'm talking about. When you knock over one domino, it creates momentum to knock over the other one, and so on. And pretty soon, you don't even have to touch or watch the dominoes. They just continue to knock themselves over. What if your work was the exact same way? But you're probably wondering, well, if that's the case, how do I know exactly what is most important? Enter the domino question. And that question comes from the book, The One Thing. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Here's why that question works. It gets you laser focused on what actually matters. What moves the needle the most? What is the most important thing to get done first? And what makes everything else easier or unnecessary? Just like dominoes, if we knock over the big one first, it takes care of all the little ones along the way. So now, I told you we're going to take action today on this workshop. If you're watching the recording, before you move on to the next section, or for those of you that are live, before you move on to the next section with me, you're going to take you're going to take a second. You're going to ask yourself this question specifically for your career or business. You'll need the answer, for the next exercise, and pop it in a chat, or if you feel like, unmute yourself and share. So you want to ask yourself the question, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else in my career or business will be easier or unnecessary?
I know for me in the real estate business, it's
Okay, so
generate leads that will lead to clients.
yeah, lead generation, that's huge.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, Nick also said lead generation. Yeah, and it depends on, what your role is in a company or if you're self-employed, but especially if you're self-employed, that really is the thing. It's like if you don't have people coming in to buy your stuff, you don't really even have a business. You're just, playing pretend every day for fun. So that's huge. So if you're watching the recording of this, be sure that you're very clear on that. A couple other examples might be, if you are a marketer, it might be getting better at copywriting or writing copies for a specific landing page or funnel or email or something along those lines that you know are going to convert clients along the way. And there's a million other examples. Feel free to ask yourself that question and make sure you have the answer dialed in before we move on. So now you know that you need to do deep work. You also learned how to prioritize. And now you know what the most important thing to work on during your deep work is. Now it's time to create the final piece of our puzzle, and that is the 1 hour work block. This final piece is simple but insanely powerful because you build your results around one focused work block per day. That's all it takes. Here's what most people don't realize. Deep work doesn't mean working for 10 hours straight. It's about one block of 30 to 90 minutes at a time. No more, no less. Studies have shown that even top level performers, elite authors, creatives, CEOs can only sustain around 4 hours of focused deep work per day. Total, not straight, total for the entire day. And for most people just starting out, one focused hour will change your entire life. I'm speaking from experience. This shit is magic. That's an understatement. So we're going to put together your 1 hour work block, but just real quick, I want to cover, here's how you do it. First things first, you want to block 60 minutes on your calendar with no interruptions. Like this is your sacred time. Number two, you want to pick your one thing. We just finished that in the last section. What is the one thing I can do such by doing it? Everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. Then number three, you want to clear your workspace. So if you work at a desk or you're making calls in an office or whatever your thing is, if the task doesn't require your phone, put it in another room. But if it's you reaching out to clients, at least put your phone on do not disturb, get your call list ready like you guys do in lead gen, or get your text list ready, or however you're doing your outreach, and then set a timer. Again, we're doing a 60-minute work block, but there's a few ways you could do that. You could do 60 minutes straight. You could do 45 minutes with a break. You could do 25 minutes with a 5-minute break in between. That's, I can never say this, Pomodoro. There's a lot of different strategies that go along with it, but the idea is that you set a timer. And then number five, you go, right? You execute. No tabs or apps or social media. No messages outside of if you're reaching out to specific people, you can obviously talk to them. And no switching. I don't care if you all of a sudden get this reminder, oh, I forgot to. No, you just stay focused for that hour. And at the end, you want to track your progress and move on. One block per day of this done consistently will move you forward, or excuse me, will move you further in a week than most people get in their entire month. And if you do it every day, I promise you, you will feel like you got more done in that 1 hour than you used to do all day because your most important work gets done first. When that happens, you don't really need to do anything else. Yeah, there's occasionally some shallow work or maybe some extra deep work to be done. But compared to the days before when you were procrastinating, avoiding, really just pissing yourself off and in this rut, you're no longer going to be in that. And that in itself is incredibly valuable. And if you want to go pro level right away, try doing 3 deep work blocks per day. Now your 10-hour workday, or my old 10 to 12-hour workday, is no longer that. It becomes a 3 to 5 hour per day max, including the shallow work that may need to get done, but isn't that important. So before we move on, you have one action item. Go into your calendar, if you're watching the recording or if you're on this call, time block 1 hour, and drop in the chat or unmute yourself and share what time each day you're going to be committing to doing deep work. Quick reminder, deep work can also be studies or solving problems, which I personally normally save for the weekends. That way I can keep practicing the skill of doing daily deep work and moving the needle forward even on my off days. Awesome. We got some people chiming in. Nick said 10 to 11:30 every day. That's huge, man. Personally, for myself, it's around 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every single day. And then I have an extra block that I do after the gym, but I normally try to bust out, 3 hours, take a break, another hour or two, call it a day. Awesome. I'll just wait a second, make sure we got that done before we move on to the end. Awesome. So let's quickly talk about next steps and key takeaways. And just a reminder, stick around to the end. You'll get that a couple free bonuses. I'll also answer any questions. We can troubleshoot for you specifically how you can do this, maybe what's been in the way. And if you're watching the recording, yeah, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's in my communities or, via email or something, or comment on my posts on social media. Happy to help you as well. But first, I want to ask you a question. So let me ask you a question, person watching this, whether it's live or recording. If you could guarantee that you couldn't lose, that you would begin making more progress each day than you used to all week, would you? So sometimes what we really need to do is signal to our brain that this really matters, that it's not like the 101 other things you told yourself you were going to do and then didn't do, but that you're actually all in on this one thing. So we need to do something called a grand gesture. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, when she needed to finish Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, she booked a $1,000 per night hotel suite just to lock in and write. Think of that. That's crazy. That was her grand gesture, an investment that told her brain, this matters. We're finishing this. Okay. So you don't need to drop $1,000 on a hotel, but you do need skin in the game. This could be a new environment, a time constraint, or what I found most powerful, a mentor or community that holds you accountable. Everything I've shared with you today, the deep work, prioritization, the 1 hour work blocks, it all works, but it really is just the beginning. The truth is, the entire system is only as powerful as your ability to apply it consistently. And most people don't struggle because they lack the knowledge. They struggle because they try to do it alone. So here's your choice. You can take everything I've given you today, you can go implement it and grind your way through trial and error and figure it out on your own like I did. Or you can let me help you to fast track the progress. We'll eliminate the guesswork, simplify your systems, and design a schedule, lifestyle, and workflow that brings more time and money freedom into your life. If you're interested, who this is for, entrepreneurs or self-employed service providers, or even ambitious professionals working 9 to 5 who feel stuck in busy work but want more freedom and better results. So if you want a smarter, more sustainable way to work and live that allows you to create more time and money freedom without burning out along the way, this is for you. As a reminder, this is not for people who are looking for quick fixes or surface level hacks, people who aren't willing to slow down, to zoom out and do focus work, or people who want results without putting in the work to improve. What I offer and what you'll get if you decide to book a call to learn more, which we'll talk about in a second, is full alignment with your long-term goals and vision and the daily, weekly, monthly action plan that you run. Full support working through any mental blocks or bad habits stopping you from getting the results that you want, and access to strategies and systems like what you learned today to help you create time and money freedom with less stress. If that sounds good to you, I'm going to leave a link in the chat or on the recording. You can book a call to learn more about joining my inner circle and or working with me one-on-one. On the call, we'll audit your current game plan. We'll uncover what's holding you back and what you need to move forward faster and see if this is a good fit for you. So now let's jump into Q&A. I'll drop that link in the chat real quick. And I'd love to answer some questions for those of you who are live. Because I know if you have questions, chances are someone else who's watching the recording probably does as well. And the more we can, get you guys clear on how you can use this, the better. So feel free to drop in the chat or unmute yourself if you have questions or maybe even like a personal example of times when you may have struggled with this. And I'm happy to support you.
I got a question. So just curious, like obviously we're still human, we still have our ups and downs, good days, bad days. So I guess what are some of the strategies or suggestions you have for when you fall off your schedule, you don't, you fall out of focus, you fall out of these, positive routines and habits. What are some tips and tricks you do to get back into them as quickly as possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this, like anything else, is a skill. So it's all about daily practice. And just like anything else you're learning, you're not going to be perfect at first. That's the whole point, right? It's like, it's a muscle. And just like at the gym, like sometimes you're going to, go in there and you're going to dumbbell press some heavy ass weight. And other days you might fail a set or feel like shit. The important thing is you just keep working out, right? You just keep showing up. Even if it's okay, oh man, I wasted half my day. I'm frazzled as hell, scatterbrained. I'm frustrated. Take a couple deep breaths, keep a gangster, throw on a 30-minute timer, throw on the headphones, Flow State Studio on YouTube, and bust something out. Just exercise, just do something because what I found is that this is a gift that keeps on giving. For example, today before this workshop, I was able to do 3 hours straight of deep work. Like that's my record. I was listening to a trance playlist on YouTube, just pounded some coffee. I was like, holy shit. Like I didn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like it was insane. But several months ago, even after a little bit of like a personal slump, I couldn't focus for more than 45 minutes. It was like a chore to get myself to sit down and do the work. And that's natural, right? You're going to have ebbs and flows of your passion and even commitment level to whatever you're doing. The important thing is you just keep showing up and try. It's kind of like in Atomic Habits, James Clear likes to say, don't miss twice. Like there's probably going to be a day in your life you don't do it. That's okay. But try not to do that more than once. Like do something, even if your deep work for today is I'm going to sit down and read this book without my phone, with no distractions for 30 minutes. That still technically counts because it's teaching you something. It's going to get you closer towards your goals, unless you're reading like, I don't know, comic books, which are cool, but that's more of like a leisure activity. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, a lot of good reminders. It's just I need to get back into some habits I've fallen away from, and I'm trying to use some atomic habits tricks, like do it for 5 minutes just to get in the flow of things. And then also reminding myself, like I keep telling myself that I can't focus right now, but then I can sit there on reels for 45 minutes. Like that is focusing. So I can definitely do it. I just need to direct that focus in the right direction.
Yeah, what I'd recommend, and I hear you. What I'd recommend is if you're coming out of a period of feeling like you're not super focused or productive, dumb it down. Make it so small that you can't lose. Like, don't expect yourself to jump back into the production you had before, but still flex that muscle of deep work. So, if, for example, something I'd recommend for you personally, Ryan, is maybe what your next deep work session could be in your 1 hour time block is strategic thinking, where you just bust out a Word document or a pen and a pencil or a pen and a paper, and you just talk to yourself and try to figure out what's in my way, what are my blocks, like kind of re-clarify your game plan and recommit to the path. Because internally, you probably have this story of like, oh, I should, I should, I should. That's just going to keep you stuck. But if you can, again, use this 1 hour per day, no matter what, Monday through Sunday, it can be for moving the needle forward in your business with lead generation. It can be for strategic planning. It can be for learning. It's just flex that muscle and again, make it so small. Like maybe your next deep work session for work is just reach out to 5 people in that hour. Like that's the objective. You have a full hour to do it. So even if you sit there and stare at the paint on the wall for 45 minutes, at least you know at the last 15 minutes you can get that done. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, sounds like a good plan. Appreciate it.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, great question. Uh, Nick, I don't know if you have any questions, my friend. Happy to answer. And if not, I have just a couple of things I want to share with you guys before we wrap up. It looks like you unmuted yourself. Any questions?
I don't think I have any questions, but I do think it's helpful, and I do need some help in this department for sure. So would love to chat some more.
Awesome, man. Yeah, feel free to book a call on I just threw the link in the chat. And I'm also going to be giving you guys a deep work checklist and a productivity guide that I've put together at the end of this call. So stay tuned for that as well. So real quick, again, resource giveaway. I'll make sure to send you guys and drop in the chat in just a second the freebies that I promised. But I just want to show you guys a little bit of some visuals I found online for this whole thing we talked about that are going to help a bit. So in the book, Deep Work, he talks about there's 4 different ways you can do deep work. There's monastic, which is like I go focus all of my time on deep work only. Like I don't even do shallow work. And maybe that's for like a high level CEO who has a huge team that they're completely leveraged. So all they do every day is the most important task and they've delegated everything else. For most of us, myself included, I'm not there yet. So that doesn't really work for me. Doesn't make sense. Then we have the bimodal philosophy, which is what Carl Jung, who he talks about in the book, did, where he goes and he literally built a property separate from his actual living space just to go work at. So that could be like you going and getting an Airbnb for a weekend, or every like Bill Gates had this thing where he'd do like a think week out in the mountains or something. That's more of the bimodal. It's like periods of time by yourself in isolation, doing nothing but deep work, or having seasons of your year, like maybe quarter one, strictly focused to deep work, and the other one's not. Maybe like a professor writing like a dissertation might use this method. That doesn't really work for me either. The two that I feel like are most applicable to you guys and based on what you shared, and also just most of the people I work with, is either the rhythmic or the journalistic. And so the rhythmic philosophy is what I recommend, which is every day you have a time block for deep work. It just becomes a part of your daily habits and routine. So it's not something you have to really try that hard at. And if it's at the same time every day, I personally like in the morning hours. I feel like that's when we're most productive as people. Everybody's different though. Maybe it's late at night for you. You just have this consistent, rhythmic approach to it. The other way is the journalistic. And that, I think this would work for somebody who's like on the fly a lot. Like let's say somebody whose job is like delivery or I don't know, just random example, where they do deep work in any free time they get. So if they have a meeting cancel, headphones on, timer on, they try to get something done. Another example I think that they've used is like a journalist, like they're out interviewing people on the street, and then in between they're like writing down their notes and compiling and what preparing for their next interview kind of thing. So again, I'd recommend the rhythmic personally, or as a second, the journalistic approach. And then a few of the things that this book talked about, I just wanted to share with you guys before we wrap up for some extra value. Low quality forms of leisure versus high quality forms of leisure. Now that you are not going to be working all day, you need to know how to fill your time without social media and other bullshit distractions so that you can do better work tomorrow. Because if you use your leisure time just to like drain your brain and waste your time, it's going to affect your performance. So this is a few examples of what you can do differently. Low quality forms of leisure like television, Facebook or social media, browsing entertainment websites, or people watching naughty videos online, liking photos on Instagram, reading through online forums like Reddit, binge watching shows on Netflix. Again, there might be a time and a place for these things. I'm not saying never do them, but if that's your default, I would reconsider. High quality forms of leisure would be like learning an instrument, hiking in nature, reading a good book, gathering with friends and family, gardening or cooking. One fills your cup, one still is a form of emptying it. Does that make sense? Yeah, awesome. And then the last thing, deep work routine, just to kind of summarize this all together. And again, this is in the deep work checklist that I'll be sharing with you in just a moment. You have location, where you're going to do it, duration, how long it will be, structure, am I not having my phone in my office and what's the objective of the actual session? And then requirements, for me, it's I got to have headphones on and music playing. If I do those things, oh, and also a timer. If I do those things, we're good to go. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm just going to quickly show you guys this freebie, and then we'll wrap up and I'll let you guys go. This is the deep work checklist that I put together. The link will be in the chat in about 3 seconds once I can get my screen to share. 2 seconds. Where's this at? With as much as I use Zoom, you think it'd be easier by now. So I put together this deep work checklist that kind of just summarizes everything we've talked about today. And I'll be dropping that in the chat here in about 5 seconds. I'm also going to be giving you a copy of my goals to results guide, which is a planning and goal setting guide that you can access as well right after this call. So feel free to grab this in the chat. It's going there now. And if you are watching the recording, then you'll find this wherever you found the recording, whether it's on YouTube or in our community in the inner circle. Let me just grab this planning a goal setting guide, drop that in there as well. And yeah, any last minute questions from you guys? If not, we'll wrap up just before the hour.
I'm all good. Appreciate you taking the time to explain this stuff to us. So,
Of course. Well, great. Yeah, if you watch this and you got value out of it and you plan on booking a call, I look forward to talking with you and look forward to introducing you to the other amazing people I work with. We have a good tribe going on. A lot of great people, great support, and I also love to work with you one-on-one if that's something that interests you. But if not, yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for joining Ryan and Nick, as well as Spencer live and whoever watches the recording. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.